الصلاة والسلام على إمام المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. All praises and adorations are due to Allah who spared our life till this moment. We praise and glorify Him for making us Muslims, without whom we wouldn't have been guided. I ask that our last word be La ilaha illallah. We sincerely appreciate NASFAT Society for organizing this educational program, the Train the Trainers course. I am Abdul Malik Abdullahi Abu Sufyan, a researcher at the Da'wah Institute of Nigeria Islamic Education Trust. Inshallah, the topic of discussion today is Islam and culture. Islam and culture. I believe that as Muslims, many will be wondering why discussing this topic, culture, and the fact that Islam is a religion, that doesn't move away our culture, in the sense that even when the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was appointed as the prophet, he made the Arabian culture already existing. So what actually happened concerning those cultures? Were they abolished or they were affirmed? If they were abolished, then it becomes compulsory or a duty upon every individual to abolish his own culture. But if those cultures were affirmed and only areas where they contradict Islam, they were changed, then same thing is expected of us. But before going into the discussion proper, what is culture? We say it's about nation, it's about diversity, it's about tradition, belief, ethnicity, all about people. That is to say, culture is whatsoever people do or say, the way they dress, the way they do things, the way they cook, and that which they eat, all form part of culture. So people say culture is the way of life of people, and it's called the material or immaterial. The material are those things you can touch, their feedings, their style of food, their dressing styles, while the immaterials are those things that you may only feel, such as their names, the way they speak, the way they smile, and even once you see their eyes, you would say they belong to social community simply because of their appearance. But something very important for us to take a look at is the saying of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, when he said, people's sayings and actions are of two kinds. That we have the acts of worship by which their religion is established, and we also have the customary practices which are required for day-to-day living. Concerning the acts of worship, man is not encouraged or allowed to introduce anything into this very aspect of life, simply because the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man ahdatha fi amrina hada ma laysa minhu fahuwa rad, aw man amila amalan laysa alayhi amruna fahuwa raddu." That this affair of ours, one should not introduce anything into it, and whosoever does that, that thing shall be rejected. But when it comes to mu'amalat, that is the customary practices, the way the marriage ceremonies are conducted, the naming ceremonies are conducted, the way they dress, the way they celebrate things, this is customary. Their business engagements, these are customary practices. The default rule on this is permissibility. So scholars of usul do say, al-aslu fil ashya al-ibaha, that the basic rule concerning everything is permissibility, except that which Allah Ta'ala has forbidden, or the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam has forbidden. So when we come to approach customary practices, we need to approach it from the perspective or having the belief that the basic rule is that it is permissible. So we are not to ask a question whether this style of food could basic rule is that they are all predict Islam. So who is now claiming the power? Who also then claim the prohibition is the one responsible or that has the responsibility to provide evidence showing that prohibition. The verse supporting this very verdict or supporting this maxim is the saying of Allah Ta'ala in Surah Al-Baqarah, where Allah says, هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا, that he is the one who has created for you whatsoever is on earth. Scholars said the fact that Allah Ta'ala has created for us everything that is on earth shows that we are allowed to make use of everything on earth except where or when we were forbidden to do so. But in the absence of a verse or hadith proving the forbiddance, then the basic rule is that it is permissible. What is the Sharia objective concerning these prohibitions or concerning these instructions or legality? The basic Sharia objective or the higher intent of Sharia is bringing about benefit and avoiding harm. We would understand this when we look at the analysis or the case of intoxicant. What led to the prohibition of intoxicant? Allah says, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ قُلْ فِيهِمَا إِثْمٌ كَبِيرٌ وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ وَإِثْمُهُمَا أَكْبَرُ مِنْ نَفْعِهِمَا. Allah said, they ask you concerning alcohol and gambling. Tell them that there is benefit in them, but the harm is greater than the benefit. So the Islamic rule is whatsoever has harm or that the harm is higher than the benefit, Islam do prohibit that thing. But when the benefit is higher than the harm, then Islam legalizes. Why? Simply because Islam wants to bring about benefit and avoid harm. So when we apply this to our cultural practices, we need to check, is this thing beneficial or is harmful? If that thing is beneficial, then we need to know that the basic Islamic rule concerning that thing is that it is legal. It is permissible. Doing it doesn't call for punishment. Rather, it may call for reward, or it may not even call for reward and may not call for benefit. And that is what is referred to as mubah, merely permissible. So have you understood this very Islamic, the higher intent of Islamic law? What are the things to expect from this presentation? We say, what makes something Islamic? What is it? Is it the fact that I am bearing Abdul Malik, or that you are bearing Abdul Rahman, that makes yours permissible? Or one who bears Emmanuel, that bears Chinedu, or that bears Shudayinde, or some of the Yoruba names, or those cultural names? Is it that once the name is not becomes on Islamic, or what is the way, what makes it in Islam? That thing is legal. So when you apply this to name, you will understand that, for instance, Shode, for instance, or your name is Chine, probably this has been before accepting Islam. Must you change it? We say no, because what makes a thing Islamic is not the language. Why is it not the language? Because Allah said, "In akramakum indallahi atqakum." The noblest of you is he who is more, who has more piety of Allah Ta'ala, and not the Arabic nature of it. Another thing is that it's embracing Islam tantamount to dropping your permissible cultural identities. Does it mean that once you have accepted Islam and you are a Yoruba person, those Yoruba clothing, you begin to drop them? Those dressing style, you begin to drop them? Those Igbo dressing style, you begin to drop them? We say no. Why are we saying no? because Islam is not looking at that, rather the major objective. So we have to go back to the basis of that thing. So you must not change that. Many people embrace Islam during the lifetime of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't ask them to change their names. He didn't tell them not to dress in a particular way. In fact, when he became the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he was preaching to people, he never told them stop dressing this way. So what Islam does is to give you is to provide you with rules and not to tell you that no, when you use Soso wrapper, it is Islamic. When you do not use Soso wrapper, it is un-Islamic. No, rather you will be told that, okay, when you come to dress as a lady, ensure that you appear covered, you appear clothed, you did not appear to be nude. You cover your nudity. As a brother, you cover your nudity. Once Islam has given you this rule and you obey that rule, then what you are doing is now Islamic. It doesn't matter the name it takes. In Islam is not tantamount to dropping your PR simply because you are now Islam, you are now a Muslim, and then you begin to leave your cultural ways. Because even as a scholar, there are communities you will go. If you do not dress in their own cultural attires, you may be seen as a foreigner. But for you to even gain acceptance, dress in their beloved attires so that they can listen to you, and this form part of da'wah. Of course, Allah says we should call bil hikmati wal mau'izati al hasana. So part of hikmah or wisdom is that you also apply their cultural identities in order to gain acceptance. New name, old name. You change your name. Initially, your name is Emmanuel or your name is Kindy. Must you change that name because you are now a Muslim? Of course, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that Ahabbul Asma ilallah Abdullah wa Abdul Rahman. That the most beloved name to Allah is Abdul Rahman and Abdullah. But that doesn't mean that when you are being addressed, for instance, as Chinedu, Chinyere, or you come to the north as another person, then you are addressed as Ndatadu. That means that you have to change your name. No, many people accepted Islam and their names were not changed by the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Umar radiallahu anhu, for instance, even before accepting Islam, was known as Umar, and his name wasn't changed. And many other companions of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, those who had their names changed was because those names were containing bad meaning. For instance, among the Arabs, some would say, "What is your name?" When asked by the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the person said, "Murrun." My name means something that is not sweet. What is your name? Someone will say, "My name means lack of mercy, merciless." What is your name? He said, "My name it means war." And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam will say, "No, that is not your name." We should stop presenting to them that, okay, which Islamic name do you want to choose now? If you say, which Islamic name do you want to choose now? Are you now saying that his former name, Emmanuel, is not Islamic? Are you saying that his former name or her former name, Chinyere, is not Islamic? No. Leave that. Simply ask the person to Islam inquired. Is another thing that people should consider as something that should create a divide, that should begin to create distinction between people. Rather, we need to find strength in our community, as we can see even from the is Igbo, the other is Arabian, the other person is an Arab man, the other person is an Englishman, the other is something different. All of this is for us to be able to identify one another. So, as we can see, we have Amala, Dudu. This is Yoruba meal, and fine. Islam is fine with eating this. We have the Shankafa, which is known. We also have the Acheke, African food. No reward, no sin taken from all of this, simply because these are cultural or customary practices, which does not call for any sin. Allah Ta'ala told us the wisdom behind this diversity when He said, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ خَلْقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافُ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَأَلْوَانِكُمْ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَةً. Allah says, and among His signs are the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the diversity of your tongues and colors. For in this, behold, there are messages, there are things to reflect, but this is to be done only by those whom Allah Ta'ala has provided knowledge. Therefore, the diversity in our tongues, in our colors, in our languages, and even in the creation of the heavens and the earth, or even in the creation of ourselves. This is a male person, this is a female person. This all shows that Allah Ta'ala has power, has wisdom, has reasons for all of this, and not to create a kind of distinction whereby we at some people to be inferior, and then we look at others as superior. The Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said the Arab man has no any superiority over the non-Arab man, and neither does the non-Arab man has any superiority over the Arab man. Here too, Allah Ta'ala is telling us that يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. Allah says, يا أيها الناس, O mankind, إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى, we created you male and female. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا, and made you into nations and tribes that you may know each other. إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ, verily the noblest of you in the sight of Allah is the most deeply conscious of Him. Behold, God is all-knowing, all-aware. Allah Ta'ala told us in this verse that we have been created into tribes and nations in order that we know each other. Once I say Abdul Rahman, the Abdul Rahman who is a Yoruba person answers. The other Abdul Rahman who is a Hausa person answers. Then we say, no, we mean the Abdul Rahman, the Yoruba, or we say, no, the Abdul Rahman, the Hausa, or we say, no, the Abdul Rahman, the Igbo man. These little are often in order that you may know one another. In akramakum indallahi atqakum, verily, the noblest of you in the sight of Allah is one who fears Him the most, who is conscious of Him. Scholars do say that the meaning of taqwallah, God consciousness, is أن تجعل بينك وبين عذاب الله وقاية بامتثال أوامره واجتناب نواهيه. That taqwallah, God consciousness, is أن تجعل بينك وبين عذاب الله وقاية, for you to place a barrier between you and Allah's punishment. بامتثال أوامر الله, by holding on to Allah's instructions, واجتناب نواهيه, and avoiding His prohibitions. That once you have done this, then you are conscious of Allah Ta'ala. So it is not about using jalabia, dressing in the Hausa manner, dressing in the Nupe attires, dressing in the Yoruba attire that matters, speaking Yoruba that matters, speaking Nupe that matters. What matters is that consciousness of Allah Ta'ala. Therefore, talking about Islam and culture, culture is never condemned in Islam. In fact, there is a rule in Islam that deals with aspects of culture. So now we say, what is the position of Islam concerning all these differences in our culture? From the Islamic legal maxim, we have what is called al-ada muhakkama. Culture is a basis for law. How do we implement this, or how do we apply this? When, for instance, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, a man should not dress like a woman, and neither should a woman dress like a man. When you come to the north, you meet, or you go to the southwest, you are going to meet people, women using wrapper and men using trousers. But there are communities that one may go to and would find that the men there use wrapper while the women use trousers. In this case now, to apply this, you simply say al-ada muhakkama. Culture is a basis for law. So in that community where men use wrapper and women use trousers, when a woman uses wrapper in that community, she has dressed in the manner of men. And when a man in that community uses trousers, he has dressed in the manner of women. But when you come to the community whereby men use trousers and the women use wrapper, then a man that uses wrapper is dressing in the manner of women, and a woman that uses trousers is dressing in the manner of men. So al-ada muhakkama, culture, is a basis for law when we look at it. So we can see that culture is indeed very important. So when Allah Ta'ala told us in the glorious Quran, talking about women or marital relationship, and he said, وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, and live with them in the best manner. What is best has not been defined in the glorious Quran. So culturally is what you have to apply it. When you talk to your wife, for instance, come on, be quiet. Is this understood culturally that you are being general or that you are being mild, or it is understood that you are harsh-hearted? Now, culture will come in. There are things that one may do for his wife, or for his spouse, or partner, and culturally, it may be considered as, okay, this person is being good, but when done in the other side, it may be considered to be something bad. What defines this is culture. So, al-ada muhakkama, culture is a basis for law. Having understood this, then we need to know that avoidance of cultural apostasy is what Islam comes to also achieve. And that's why when the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was appointed as the prophet, he did not say, the Arabs, stop dressing this way. The non-Arabs, stop dressing that way. Or all of you, come and dress this way. Rather, they were giving rules. So when Islam said, al-ada muhakkama, culture is a basis for law, is to avoid cultural apostasy. A situation whereby a Yoruba man will never appear as like a Yoruba person, or whereby a Yoruba person may never appear like a Yoruba person. This is cultural apostasy. Trying to be understood, trying to also show that recognition that yes, I have no problem with this your culture. I have no problem dressing in the way you dress. I have no problem eating your meal. I have no problem speaking in the way you speak. Because some people today, if you say Assalamu alaikum, if you tell them, for instance, in Nupe, you say Kube Laji, or you say in Hausa, Inakwana, or you say in Yoruba, Ekaro or Ekushi and the rest, they begin to feel, what the hell are you doing? Why can't you say Assalamu alaikum? It is never forbidden in Islam that you say Ekaro, Ekushi, good morning, Inakwana, Kube Laji, all of this allowed. Why? Because Islam has no problem with that. Don't forget, we say the higher objective of Islam is to bring about benefit and to do away with harm. So saying Ekaro, Ekushe has no any harm, rather it has benefit. So doing it is permissible. Eating your meal, permissible. Now, what to note is that no culture, Arab or otherwise, may therefore be regarded as completely Islamic or completely un-Islamic. Why are we saying this? Simply because concerning every aspect of culture, there must be something to take and there must be something to reject. And there are things that we need to calm down, to observe clearly, to re-examine and re-examine. What is the Islamic rule on this? This is simply because the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that Inna al-halal bayyin wal-haram bayyin wa baynahuma umurun mushtabihat la ya'lamuhunna kathirun min an-nas. That inna al-halal bayyin, what is permissible is clear. Wa inna al-haram bayyin, and what is forbidden is clear. Wa baynahuma umurun mushtabihat, and in between them there are matters that are confusing. whose rules are not very clear. أمور مشتبهات لا يعلمهن كثير من الناس. The majority of the people did not know them. So when it comes to those things that is clearly permissible, fine. But when it comes to some things that you are beginning to doubt, you don't know the rule, then there is need you consult the scholars. So a culture could have this mark, which shows that it is correct. Some rejected, and there is a portion of question mark that we need to ask the scholars. So in every culture, there are things to take, there are things to reject, and there are things that are merely are permissible or we may need to ask the scholars. So what are the criteria for assessing cultural practices? Simply put, everything is permissible except what is prohibited by a clear and decisive text of the Quran or Sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Verse of the Quran legalizing or supporting this maxim is the saying of Allah, as earlier explained, هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا. هو الذي خلق لكم. That He is the one who has created for you ما في الأرض جميعا. What is on earth, what is in earth completely. Allah is the one who has created it for you. And that's why you don't need to ask. When you are giving a new drink, or you are giving a cloth, or you are giving something that is cultural, even concerning some people's culture, you don't need to ask, is this permissible or not? The basic rule is that it is permissible. Only if there is an evidence showing that that thing is forbidden, only then you may say something is forbidden. But the basic rule is that it is permissible. This is the basic rule concerning anything that is customary, anything that has to do with social relationship, interaction between people, buying and selling. This is the basic rule concerning everything, concerning man's relationship with another man, man's relationship with his society or with his community. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, he is not one of us who imitates a people other than us. Do not imitate the Jews and the Christians. This hadith was related by Imam Tirmidhi. In another narration, he said, whoever imitates a people is one of them. Man tashabbaha biqawmin fahuwa minhum. There is difference between imitation and similarity. Allah Ta'ala told us in the glorious Quran that Inna Allah kana sami'an basira. That verily Allah Ta'ala is Sami, hears everything, basira, and he sees everything. Yet man sees and man hears. Does that mean that man, the seed of man and that of Allah is the same? We say no. So the fact that the color is similar, the fact that the name is the same, doesn't mean imitation. That could be a similarity. And this very hadith has more to do with the religious practice and not mere appearance. So when we come to discuss about imitation, imitation has to do more with looking down upon your own cultural situation and then finding superiority in other people's culture. For instance, when you begin to feel that when you use jalabia, it's more rewarding or it's better than dressing in the way the Nupians do or dressing in the way the Yorubas do, then only in that moment you are considered to be imitating the other people. But when something is good, is seen with a particular community, then there is nothing wrong imitating that particular community, be it the way they dress, be it the way they speak, be it the way they walk, or be it the way they do their things. Nothing is wrong about that. So there is difference between imitation and similarity. So we say similarity is not imitation. So what the Jews or the Christians do, that is religious practice, is what the Muslims are not allowed or Muslims were encouraged to emulate them. But when it comes to anything good, the Muslims to come together to carry out social obligations. Allah Ta'ala told us in Surah Al-Ma'idah that وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. نَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى, that support one another when it comes to taqwa, God consciousness, عَلَى الْبِرِّ, concerning righteousness, وَالتَّقْوَى, and God consciousness. وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ, but do not support one another when it comes to committing sins and going against Allah's mentioned or stated limitations. Therefore, what are those examples of acceptable or cultural practices? Even when the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam became prophet, he did not condemn this, because the pagan Arabs were people that are highly hospitable. So hospitality of the pagan Arabs during their pre-Islamic days wasn't abolished by the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In fact, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir falyukrim jarahu wa man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir falyukrim ضيفه ومن كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت. That whoever believes in Allah and the last day should honor his guest. Whoever believes in Allah and the last day should honor his neighbor. Or whosoever believes in Allah and the last day should speak what is good or be quiet. We can see that in all our cultures, or in our cultures, we have already an inbuilt training of respecting the old, of respecting even our elder ones. That's why a Yoruba person will say, Boda, Kinde, Boda, this auntie, auntie Ramata, and so on. A Yoruba person may say that, yeah, and so on. Igbo people too have theirs, and this all shows that even those who are not Muslims among these communities still have this training, still show this hospitality, shows this respect, and this all indicates that anything good must be accepted and not rejected, whether it has to do with the culture of certain people or not. Respect for the elders already explained. Therefore, various types of non-prohibited food and drinks. So you don't need to ask, when you are supplied by a drink from a particular community, you don't need to ask, is this allowed, permissible, or forbidden? Provided it doesn't intoxicate, it doesn't harm, simply you can take it, you have the right, it is permissible. Therefore, not all aspects of Eastern, Western, African, or other traditional cultures are viewed negatively by Islam. Rather, Islam weighs which is good or bad. The basic principle of Islamic jurisprudence is that whatsoever that is good, Islam commands it. That فَمَا كَانَتْ مَصْلَحَتُهُ رَاجِحَةً أَوْ خَالِصَةً أَمَرَ بِهِ الشَّارِعُ أَمْرَ إِيجَابٍ أَوْ اسْتِحْبَابٍ وَمَا كَانَتْ مَفْسَدَتُهُ خَالِصَةً أَوْ رَاجِحَةً نَهَى عَنْهُ الشَّارِعُ نَهْيَ تَحْرِيمٍ أَوْ كَرَاهَةٍ. Anything that the benefit, that it is simply beneficial, or that the benefit is higher than the harm, Islam gives command to the Muslims to do that, either obligatorily or simply permissible. And whatsoever the harm is simply nothing good about it, or the harm with that, either a kind of forbiddance that is total or undesirable forbiddance. Therefore, we also have the examples of unacceptable cultural practices, just to cite cases. Social activities that revolve around the prohibited acts. Once there is a social activity that is contrary to Allah's instruction or the hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then that should be avoided. So issues of superstitious belief, whenever they will tell you that if you are married, you don't cross particular river, otherwise this sort of thing will happen to you. In their culture, any lady that is newly married and hasn't given birth doesn't go to so river, or doesn't take so thing. Or you say, if the new yam has not been celebrated, it is forbidden to eat the new yam, as we have in certain cultures in this country, then this is condemned by Islam. Why? Because prohibitions has to do is only in the hand of Allah Ta'ala and not in the hand of any individual. Cutting and drinking of blood of live animals traditionally practiced among the Maasai of Kenya. For example, all of these two indicate unacceptable cultural practice. And then greetings involving hugging and kissing between a male and a female who are non-mahram. I believe every individual can understand the reason why Islam is rejecting this. We say anything that leads to harm is forbidden in Islam, and whatsoever that leads to good is allowed in Islam. Festivities that involve participants displaying nudity or vulgarity, these two is rejected in Islam. But once everything is normal, then things go without any rejection. Also, the compulsory that وَآتُوا النِّسَاءَ صَدُقَاتِهِنَّ نِحْلًا, and give women their due right, give them their mahar, give them their bride price. This is Allah's instruction. Allah didn't say women should give men dowry, but men are to pay to the women. But a situation whereby women were asked to pay to the man or to pay men in that kind of situation, Islam will say no to that. So also, coming of age initiation rites that involve bodily mutilation or sexual lewdness, this is also rejected in Islam. Once a lady has come of age, she is simply considered as a mukallaf in Islam, that those Allah's instructions in the glorious Quran are now compulsory on her. If it has to do with obligation, and if it has to do with forbiddance, then it becomes forbidden on her. But there is nothing like initiating her into the adulthood that may involve dancing in public, showing her nudity or sexual lewdness. No, Islam is saying no to this. So superstitious acts such as patronizing a local soothsayer or astrologer whenever a major decision needs to be taken. Concerning this, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man ata arrafan aw kahinan fasadaqahu bima yaqul faqad kafara bima unzila ala Muhammadin sallallahu alaihi wasallam." That man ata arrafan, that whosoever goes to a soothsayer or a fortune teller, fasadaqahu bima yaqul, and then having asked the soothsayer replied, "I say, hey, this thing is true," and the person believes in what the soothsayer says. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, فَقَدْ كَفَرَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ, that individual has indeed disbelieved in what was revealed to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the hadith by Muslim, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if the person did not believe in what the soothsayer says, for 40 days, his salah will not be accepted. So we can see that superstitious beliefs or anything that may lead to shirk, associating partners with Allah, are completely rejected. And in conclusion, we say al-aslu fil ashya al-ibaha. The basic rule regarding everything is permissibility. Therefore, an individual shouldn't just say this is permissible or that, and that is forbidden. Allah Ta'ala said in the glorious Quran, وَلَا تَقُولُوا لِمَا تَصِفُ أَلْسِنَتُكُمُ الْكَذِبَ هَذَا حَلَالٌ وَهَذَا حَرَامٌ لِتَفْتَرُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبَ إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَفْتَرُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبَ لَا يُفْلِحُونَ. مَتَاعٌ قَلِيلٌ. That وَلَا تَقُولُ, and do not say, لما تصف ألسنتكم الكذب هذا حلال وهذا حرام. Do not say simply by what your tongue describes, gives you of description, saying that this is lawful and that is forbidden. This is Islamic, that is un-Islamic. This is forbidden and that is permissible. Simply following your whims and caprices. Allah said, do not say this, هذا حلال وهذا حرام لتفتروا على الله الكذب, in order to lie against Allah. The إن الذين يفترون على الله الكذب لا يفلحون. The verily, those who lie against Allah will never prosper. متاع قليل ولهم عذاب أليم. That it is simply a mere enjoyment of little time. وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ, and that they will have a great punishment. Therefore, the basic rule is regarding everything is what? Permissibility and not prohibitions. So culture, Islam has no problem with cultural practices, only when they go contrary to Islam. Al-Ada Muhakkama, culture is a basis for law. Culture is a basis for law. Let us try to memorize this. So we say that anything that is good, Islam permits it, and anything that is bad or harms, Islam prohibits that. So if it does not harm, it means acceptable. Or if it harms, then it means rejected. Be it a drink, be it a food, be it anything, provided it doesn't harm, then that thing is permissible. So we should be mindful of our saying Islamic. So it means that when people say Islamic dress, Islamic this, Islamic school, we mean those items that do not contradict Islamic principles. Those are the things referred to as Islamic. And when it contradicts Islamic principles, those are the things that are called un-Islamic and not just a mere claim by other individuals. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.